question, it can give you an image or a text. So also, if you give an audio file, it can give an audio file back. So there are certain models that are trained for it. For example, WaveNet audio models. In the case of multimodal, there are stable diffusion models. For text-based models, you can use GPT, Claude, Llama, and so on. So there's like so many various models, and then each model has its own tokens and all those concepts and the pricing as well. And then, of course, there are model APIs that are used to communicate with, say, for example, OpenAI, Hugging Face, Vertex AI, which is APIs for Google, and then Amazon has something called Bedrock APIs. So APIs for application, if you want to communicate through API to get the same information. For example, you go to an YouTube video site and then you search for something about the latest Tamil movies, for example, with say one movie with a famous actor and actress, and then when you start searching it, if you are looking for historical information, then the API can be used to pull that information and then comes out with a constructive list. This is a basic example. But if you're looking for some complex information, for example, you are communicating with a chat assistant for an issue with your product. So instead of talking to a human, the APIs talks to the models and responds to your questions until it finds the point where you need to talk to a human. So a lot of interactions are happening with a robot or a chat assistant, for example. So those use cases you are using APIs. And as far as GenAI application, like it's talking about marketing, customer support, for finance, education, and so on, like industry. So these are all different things. So for all of these, there are two things you have to remember, which is the RAG, which is really the retrieval augmented generation, and then also the models, the large language models, where you can tune those models in some cases to make it work for your needs based upon industry. Any questions you want to have? Do you have any questions, or maybe you want me to go all the way to the end for the questions? Okay, let's go about, keep going, and then we can stop whenever you want, if you like. So if you see the picture, there's a foundation model which is in the center, and then you can see a set of pillars that are used to help the foundation support the foundation model. For example, you have an app, and then you have an interface, and then especially security is a critical aspect where especially governance security plays a role, so that you don't want malicious actors get into accessing your system application, start asking inappropriate questions. So governance security is important. Training the model, because this is a large language models, you need heavy processing units needed for training the models. That's where you see the big players like OpenAI, Gemini, Facebook, Llama models. They're all doing that in bigger chips like NVIDIA chipset or other chipsets. And then data is a critical node. So I think for data science, if you're focused on data science, data is a critical node, especially for all these use cases. Without data, these models don't work. And the data has to be continuously trained. That's why you see new versions of models coming from time to time. And then they store those information in vector format so that it's easy to search it. Like you see on the right side, as an example, when I'm looking for a specific, giving a specific prompt, it basically tries to break the finds the number of tokens, builds a number of tokens, which is really basically a building block of text used by large language models, right? So tokens basically nothing but letters that make up words and sentences that AI can use to communicate. So that's how it is basically. So there's like, for this particular 3-line sentence, there is like 40 tokens, and then it's 40 tokens are needed in order to query the large language model. And then when it looks for information, if it's a text, it will look up initially in your vector database, which is a RAG, then it looks up the large language model, then it basically gives you an output that is what you get it back basically. And then it has some long-term memory caching and so on. So it's basically, it's a continuous process. That's why this is in a circle, and it continues to uh, evolve basically. And there's no right thing about it, because some models work in some use cases, some models don't work in other use cases, especially like image embeddings and videos and so on. Okay, so let's talk about a simple architecture about how the generative AI works. So you can think of three buckets. Okay, one is on the left side is the data, which is like I talked about: text, images, speech, which is an audio, structured data, 3D signals, which is really basically three-dimensional data, like a spatial information or motion capture data. Okay, on the center is really your foundational model, which is where the training indicates, where the model learns from the input data. So the model learns from all these data sets. Then it kind of creates an adaptation, which is really, you can see of suggest, it's basically all the data that you are feeding is basically then categorized in different buckets. It's basically like you can think of it like a task. Based upon your question, it will try to understand, give relevant information. Sentiment analysis, like how the emotional tone or opinion about a text, which is like good, bad, neutral, you can think of it. And then information extraction, pulling specific relevant data from large content. Image captioning, which is really creating description for images. Object recognition, recognizing whether it's a human, animal, or object, basically. And then instruction following, basically executing specific commands, direction given by users. So it's basically, these are the different tasks. So the adaptations showing how the base model can be fine-tuned or adapted to specific applications. So that's what the whole idea of the foundation model is. It can solve variety of tasks, and how they are training it is based upon large set of data. And that is what is used to do like uh, predictions, content creation, code generation, design and art, business analytics, and scientific discovery. So I think, so these are the outputs that you are generating based upon the data set. So it's critical to understand the data, and then how these models work, because it's not only algorithms, it's also huge processing power needed. That's why you see chipsets are there involved. So it's because you're dealing with billions of data, and the model has to take all your input and remember it, I mean, able to search it quickly. Imagining you are doing it in Google like before, now you are doing it with using more foundational models at faster speed. So you can imagine the scale at which it has expanded, and it continues to evolve. So there's no slowdown basically, and they're optimizing it, transformation. What do you call it? A DeepSeek, for example, is a new model that took a storm like 2 weeks back, which is from China. They took the OpenAI model, and then they basically took the model and then they distilled it and then they fine-tuned it and they improved it a little bit, and that model is become superior than the previous model. So I think you can see data is the backbone for all of them, and then the algorithms that play the role. So from an engineering perspective, learning the foundation of programming tools and data design, data structure is very critical. To be, you don't want to go with speed with the generative AI and start taking advantage. You want to take advantage of it, but at the same time understand the foundations, fundamentals, because that is critical for you to sustain in the long run. Okay, so let's take a simple example. When I was talking about RAG, retrieval augmented generation, what is this basically? So it's a technique that improves accuracy and relevance by generating responses based upon a use case, for example. Okay, so if you see this example, it's a chatbot as an example, where Imagine you are in a library and looking for a book. User is looking for a book. I'm looking for uh, a book which is related to, say, neural network, right? And I mean, there are many books, and maybe you are looking for a specific book from the specific author related to your, for example, your exam paper. Okay, so as a user, you ask the right question, and then it goes to the chatbot. Chatbot looks up in a database, which is really the RAC vector database, which I was talking about, because it is where it has trained the entire library database of the books indexes and kept references to it in the database. Okay, and then also it looks up uh, online data sources like third-party libraries as well. So just so that it knows where to look for first, it looks up the information. Then it takes that information, sends that information along with your question to a large language model. The large language model basically is more up to date, relevant information. So it basically takes your information. LLM basically what it does is it finds a book, multiple books, for example, and then it finds relevant information. So now it needs to give a response back to you. You cannot just give a link to a book, right? So instead, it will say, since you asked this question, it's going to construct the response in a such a way and then gives the response back to the user. So the user knows based upon the question, he got this answer. And if he wants to tune that question again, he can optimize the question and then do it. So this is basically the process of the interaction that you as a user do between an application. And then RAG plays an important role in this whole thing. And then let's talk about some of the applications. So there are a lot of applications that are getting evolved, like chatbot, QA knowledge. Basically, at NEC, if you want to look up all the different, uh, say for example, in your final semester, everybody does a project. Imagine the last 30 years, what are the different projects everybody has done to get understanding of the use cases they have done it and what technology you used. You can build a knowledge base, which is really a knowledge base, and students can look up that database to see what excites them, because at different times in the uh, generation, every generation at different phases in your say for example, I was doing projects in 1997. I was using probably, I think, Visual Basic, or I think I remember Visual Basic or some related to a UI based programming project. Okay, so 10 years later, there came web interfaces, web applications. So probably people might have done some e-commerce application or some application that is relevant to that age. And then maybe in 2005, people have might build complex mobile app applications. Maybe now you're talking about so you have different use cases, different times in the college and the career. People have done different use cases, solved it. So you can build a knowledge base around it. Similarly, image generation. You want to generate marketing, especially marketing wants to create a new image to put a flyer out. So for that, they can put a prompt to say, give me a image that shows two famous personalities, uh, probably going to moon, basically. Then it can create a mixture of it. And the coding assistant is really the key, where you want to write a function. Like say if you bring a key series function, you can give a prompt, it can write a code. Or if you say, I want to write a new table in an insert in a database, you can give a coding assistant. Video generation may be something around, say, if you are playing cricket, for example, you want to see how Sachin Tendulkar would have hit a six using coming at a fast ball. So you can generate a video for 30 seconds, all the different strokes he plays, forward, front, backwards. So imagine like that. And then the back end, again, it's a foundation model, and then the infrastructure is key, basically. And how these application impact is automation, productivity, and then new business models like marketing, video content, and then also cost reduction. Instead of a human, now you have a chatbot, and then also build new use cases, innovation acceleration. So these are the basic impacts you can think of from a major application. Okay, so let's talk about some of the popular real world examples. So I have put some links here. I'll share the material so you guys can check it out. So ChatGPT, everybody knows it's OpenAI. I'll talk about this Copilot, GitHub Copilot, and Amazon Q. Then Perplexity is another popular search engine that is taking storm. People use it for a lot of different things, not just like Google. It's more than Google now at this point, Google.com. So, so it is important to know that Generative is leveraging latest advances in machine learning. So it's not a magic overnight. It took a lot of evolution. And then in the past, imagining 7 to 8 years back, we used to write machine learning models based upon a subset of data. Now you are getting foundational models that can perform more tasks that based upon a large number of parameters and learns big complex concepts, which is phenomenal compared to machine learning. It only works to a certain use case, certain place, right? So now it is more broader scope. And then it used all the pre-training using the internet scale. All the things you search in internet, either in Google, YouTube, Reddit, or any forum you think, those data plays a key role to augment it, and then that is what helps the foundation model to use and apply the knowledge with different context. So it's all together. I mean, it's all combining, and that's why you see it's a huge breakthrough right now. So this is a demo of a coding assistant. I thought I will share. I'll give a demo of this quickly. Let me see. I can share my screen. Let me stop sharing and start again. I think you are able to see my screen now. Okay, so in the I don't know how many have used Visual Studio Editor, which is really basically this is basically a Visual Studio tool which is available in the link in the internet. I think I recommend everybody to take a look at this because this is basically a free version of from Microsoft. It's called Visual Studio Tools, and along with that, you can see there are two. The GitHub Copilot is something that you can actually integrate, and basically this gives you an interface on the right side or maybe as a free flow. And then similarly, there's something called extensions where you can install something called Amazon Q, which is again the basic version is free from Amazon. So
Excuse me,
you
sir.
can
Can you zoom in a bit?
zoom in this. You are not able to see it fully.
Yeah, it's not clear.
Let me see. Mhm. Is it better now?
No, sir, it's kind of same.
Let me see.
It's fine, sir.
It's fine now.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So you're able to see the extensions, right? Okay. So in Amazon Q, if you see it, it has a chat assistant on the left. Same thing with GitHub. So I can ask, like, for example, create a function that can add two variables. So it's a simple example, okay? And outputs, there is. So now if you see it, in the past, we used to think writing this function, how to add two variables, right? So now you can see that it can generate the code for you using the coding assistant. So now if I go and say insert here, so it is taking two variables, adding them, and then returns the result. So as an example, if you give numbers, two numbers, 10, 30, it gives the output. So it's a simple example, okay? Now say write as Fibonacci series function. So you can imagine that the power of generative AI, it's able to write the code for you and then gives you with different examples, and then on top of it, it will give you some suggestion. How does the generator handle memory version? Can the optimized avoid stack overflow? So I think it gives you suggestions as well. And then now if I put this function here, now I can ask Q to generate test. It's not able to do it, but let's say explain this code. So if I say give me explanation of this code, it's going to say what is it doing, line one, line two, and then what is the third step doing. So these are all like, imagine if you have a lot of application written in the past and you want to get answers now. I mean, you want somebody to explain it. Instead, the assistant is able to explain it for you. So it's kind of, it's taking it to the next level. So from a programming perspective, me when I was writing code, I have to remember these are all. It takes at least few days to write it, test it, deploy it, and now these are all happening in no matter of time. Let's take a simple another example. Create a table, create an employee table, and generate a view in SQL Server. Right. So if I give this one, what it is going to do is it's going to create a table for you, and then it inserts some sample data, and then now it creates a view. So it's pretty much, it does everything. It will take probably few days for somebody to test it. So that is what the coding assistant is doing it for you. Same thing goes with GitHub Copilot. This is also another free version. I would recommend installing it and play with it. So where you can do the same thing basically. Write a Node.js application that generates hash password hash function. So it's thinking, and then say it's what it is doing is it takes your input, it starts thinking, and then now it created a project for me. Okay, so now it creates a project for me. So it's going to create a project, and then it shows all the files it generated based upon my prompt. Your project is done. So you can imagine the whole, an assistant can generate a project, and that contains the hash service that I was asking about, generate a password hash, and then it basically has two subfunctions that generates a hash and then also verification, and then email, and then basically configuration, where to run this application, what port, and then also it generates unit test, how to test it. So you can imagine, just all I did was gave a prompt, and that prompt generated the entire project. So the key is, how do you define the prompt, what you're looking for in a human understand in a LLM understandable format, so it knows how to generate this output file. So that is the key of all of them. Let me stop this again. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint basically again. Able to see my screen now. Okay. 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 So that is the example of it. So I will share some of the links. And then, for example, OpenAI, I don't know how many are using ChatGPT. Same thing goes. You can ask a question about what is the famous, what is famous in Detroit, as an example. And then this is like, it talks about Detroit's famous automotive industry, architecture, sports, and so on. It keeps going, right? Now, if you say, can you talk about Ford Mustang? And then it starts giving the history about Ford Mustang, which is the Ford car, automotive car, and all the different things. So I think this is like the new form of search, which is really Google basically. And then it can continue going. So the other one I was talking about, which is the perplexity, is again another one which is similar to Google, but it is more about latest. I mean, it kind of, I mean, it becomes like your all in one basically. It can be a news, gives you the news about around the world, can talk about latest things, and then you can also discover new things. So I think it's kind of it's powered by again large language models, and so on basically. So you can think of videos, images, you can also generate image and so on. So I think this is another tool that you can think of. It is doing it for you. Okay, we have another 15 minutes. Maybe I'll talk quickly. So I said all the good things about it. So there are some challenges with this whole LLM. Okay, I mean something called hallucination, which is a common terminology you heard. So hallucination is nothing but you ask something, it gives you completely irrelevant to it. So right, so that is where each model behaves differently. Some models are very good in catching, understanding the right question, and giving you, validating the response through internal means to before it gives it back to you. in some cases it doesn't do a good job and it just gives you incorrect information. And also bias is basically gender bias, male female, how to answer it, or discrimination, or different set of people, right? So that is again based upon data. So you can see data is critical, especially again in bias. And then of course copyright concerns. It may, you don't want to pull information about copyrighted information. It has to be very careful about it, and ethical. Like you have to be respectful to what is asking, and then you want to give consider those questions accordingly. Of course, computing resources play a critical role for all these language models. Without that, this is not possible today. That's why cloud is heavily used in a lot of places, because you need huge, uh, heavy processing GPUs to do all these different tasks, because it's a lot of data. And the things to clearly to watch is what are the verify the outputs. Are they making sense? Like for example, coding assistant, I was asking question, it was giving, but until you test those applications, you don't know whether that code works fine, right? So that is critical, especially with even with text or images. And there are some limitations you'll hit it, where you have to rethink your prompt, or you may have to ask it in like multiple, break down the problem into multiple steps, and then also continuous updates of those models. And of course human, you have to get involved to make sure it is doing the right things, because the machine is doing based upon the data, right? So you have to be very careful about that. So what are the future trends? Basically multimodal I talked about, which is text, images, videos, uh, audio, and so on. And then accuracy, improving accuracy. And then they're also trying to reduce the processing power, right? They don't want to have beefed up GPUs, a lot of hardware, so they're trying to make it much smarter. That's what they're working on it. And then personalization, based upon your need, how do the models work for you? And then agents and agentic approach. This is like the evolving topic, how an agent can do things that you as a human does it 10 different things, how the agent can do it with the continuous automation, you can think of like that. So, in conclusion, it's basically generative as an exciting journey for opens up a lot of possibilities, especially for developers, businesses, large corporations, companies, and so on. So you have to explore all the key concepts. What are the models available? What is right for your use case? What are the best practices? And then you can build innovative applications and solve problems. So it can be a natural language problem or image generation, audio, and you can also create highly accurate, efficient AI solutions for your needs, basically. So you think about security, data, and then all those things are critical for these applications to be more productive. So I've shared some of the resources like AWS Builder Ready, which can be used for Amazon Q, Skill Builder, where you can get training, some white papers about foundation models and all things are needed. And I also have published some videos, how generative AI is used in automotive use cases, a couple of them in the YouTube. I'll put those links as well, so you can listen to it. In my demo, I will talk about how these use cases can be applied in different industries. I mean, different within the industry, different segments, and then how these use cases work, all kinds of stuff. So I think it's good to keep learning, understanding the concepts, and it is critical to keep up to date. I think it's there's no right size fit all. I think the foundation models are going to continue to evolve. More use cases are going to be solved. I think you are all coming to a exciting time where how is the opportunity is going to evolve for you for the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be interesting. So I think keep learning. I would say data programming, algorithm foundations are critical. and then don't jump into using the tools quickly, because then you will not learn the foundations behind it. I think especially programming, technology side, data side, and so on. I think that's all I have. I have got another 10 minutes. If you guys have any questions, definitely we can talk.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
good.
We had very good lectures, sir. Have given very nice presentation about Gen AI, sir.
Thank you.
Then I'm having one doubt, sir. Regarding agentic AI, whether the industries have started the agentic AI concept, sir?
So, so everything takes phases, right? Because a lot of, I mean, everything is, what do you call it? Use cases. I mean, everything evolves around what use cases agentic AI can solve, right? So that is the critical junction everywhere, is basically where these use case, where agentic AI can help. Especially the simplest one is chatbots, virtual assistants, how agentic AI perform multiple tasks for you, like as an example. Same thing with gaming and so on. So I think it's still early right now. A lot of uh, analysis, people are experimenting it, but definitely in some areas it's going to be faster, especially like e-commerce, or maybe like uh, wherever you are interacting with an assistant. Those areas or websites, it's going to be easily adaptable. But in autonomous systems or like robots or AI virtual environments, it's going to take some time.
Yeah, yes, okay. Then, apart from that, actually, the Gen AI, how far the industries have implementing this one? Whether in US, whether they have started to implement, then we understand that only the startups have started to implement the even the Gen AI concepts itself. Then,
Yeah, I think that's what, if you see some of the videos I've posted, there's been going on. I mean, everywhere the struggle is with data. Okay,
okay,
GenAI can solve different problems. Like, I mean, the places that has made a huge impact is in programming, developer productivity, right? The ones, the tools I showed you, there a lot of companies are already using it to see speed up the development of their product development. And then also same thing goes with uh, cloud application development, like databases, and also in areas such as marketing. uh, those areas they're using it. A lot of places where you documentation, uh, repeated activities, repeated tasks, Generative is coming in. So there are areas, automation. Those are the areas they're trying to improve. Manufacturing automation, what do you call it, like personalization. Those are all areas continues to evolve. So it's going to, it's going to be the next 5 to 10 years. That's going to be everywhere. I mean, industry. I mean, you got to see in
okay,
India as well. All the
yeah,
things that you are doing right now, you can do it from WhatsApp. You ask a question, it's going to come back with a response for you based upon. It's not the generic standard response. Now you would basically say, if I want to book a ticket, train ticket, you can do it
okay,
through WhatsApp. I mean, that's the level it's going to come in. It's going to go back and forth and eventually book a ticket. So you can think from somebody going to a station or going to online, logging in, booking. Now imagine you're going to book it from a WhatsApp. Want to know about the train status, you ask it through it. So I think that is where the next wave of automation or the information coming to you is going to happen. So hope I
okay,
answered
okay.
the question.
Okay, sir. Then another one, sir. Comparing the data scientist and AI engineer, which one have the um, most one, sir? Most one wanted by the companies among these two fields.
So yeah, I think so. Like I said, every company has different requirement, right? So a data scientist has his own role, especially he can play a role for data exploration, feature engineering, machine learning, and so on. AI engineer is more writing software, right? You can think of he's the one implementing the software. So data scientist is more about analyzing the data, exploring data, visualizing, experimenting, what data, what algorithm to use, what libraries to use. For example, when you use TensorFlow, that is what that is doing. And AI engineer is more around how to write code, deep learning code, model deployment, so on. So, but both have play in there. So, but I think it's not easy as answer. I think it's all depending upon the industry,
Okay.
and
So my
both are
question is,
equally weighted.
equally, that is my question, sir. Which one is more demanding job? Both are equal. Is it, sir?
I think it varies. Like I think it's. I mean, if you ask me 5 years back, data scientist was more popular. At the same time, AI engineer was needed for deployment. Now, with the data getting more augmented with large language models, AI engineer has more demand because you have to implement all these different applications and so on. So,
Mhm.
but data guy always have demand because new data is always coming.
Yeah.
How do you make it more meaningful, useful, and so on?
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's
Thank you
good.
for your elaborative
No problem.
answers.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Then, almost, sir, you are at night, sir.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's Friday.
So even during night, you are spending your valuable time with us, sir. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. I think it's always good to guide students. I think it's no issues there.
Okay. Then, students, if you have any query, then ask me fast because it's running out of time.
I
Sir,
think I think
sir, I
someone.
think you are 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, sir. You?
Yeah, it's going to be midnight. It's going to be 12. It's going to be 12
Yeah.
midnight.
Sorry, sir. Then
No
students
problem.
ask if students have posted some in the messages, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So RAG is basically a retrieval augmented generation, right? The way it works is it uses a lot of data, and then it kind of builds a, what do you call, indexes the information, right? So that when you ask a question, it knows how quickly it can search it. Generative adversarial networks is more like for images, videos, and music. So the RAG is more from textual context. GAN is more about graphical video concepts, basically. So it's two different categories of data. So diffusion is basically, you can think of as natural languages where you use for text purpose. But diffusion is more from images, videos, and so on, basically. So that is how you see it. Like is a more like a mathematical and physical concept. Uh, it's more for, what do you call it? Uh, Physical. There's like different diffusions, like physical diffusion, and then the diffusion model is more around uh, image and so on. So I think it's more complex than your traditional NLP, natural language process. Okay. Any other questions? We can wrap it up.
Hi, Vijay.
Hello.
This is Mohammed Abul Hassan. Is there any solution to prevent the hallucination issues while dealing with the AI models?
So if I follow the question, any solutions to prevent
Hallucination issues in AI models.
hallucination? Hallucination is something. Uh, so that there is where the models get mature, right? And then they are working on reinforcement. They are working on when a response is given, how do there should be human oversight to understand why the model gave this response, and they're trying to improve it. So there are a lot of what do you call it, improvements they are making to prevent the hallucination. So hallucination is something every large language model provider is working on it. So some models perform well, some models basically is pretty bad. So I think there are some tuning parameters like temperature and so on. The lower the temperature, it gives you more accurate. The higher the temperature, it uses a lot of data, and then it goes off track. So I think there are tuning parameters there that you have to use it to control those hallucinations. All right. I think it's time. All the best to everyone. Have a good day.